Crawl, dog! Crawl back to your cage!
I don't crawl for nobody.
I said I don't just say to me, boy.
What did you crawl? Not for you, not for anyone.
That was Bryant Irwin, blind, black, and standing in the middle of cell block D, talking back to the one man nobody ever talked back to. Colt Dawson laughed, looked at his boys, then stopped laughing. He grabbed Bryant by the shirt and threw him to the floor. Dawson put his boot on Bryant's chest and pressed down. Hard.
This is what happens when a blind cockroach forgets its place.
He stomped. Once. Twice. 3 times. Each one harder than the last. His crew cheered. 40 inmates watched. The guards turned their backs. Dawson called it fun. But the man under his boot, Dawson picked the wrong one, and he's going to pay a price he never saw coming.
Damn. You're gonna want to hear how this man ended up behind those bars. Because trust me, it didn't start in a courtroom. Let me take you back. 2 weeks earlier, Bryant Irwin woke up at 5 in the morning. Same time he'd woken up every day for the last 16 years. Not because of an alarm, not because of the guards, because that's what the Army put inside him, and no prison cell was ever going to take it out. He sat up on his bunk, swung his legs to the floor. 7 steps to the sink. He'd counted them his first night. He brushed his teeth, washed his face, folded his towel into thirds, and placed it on the rail. Every corner of his bed was tucked tight enough to bounce a quarter off of. Then he got on the floor and did push-ups. 50. Slow. Controlled. No sound except his breathing and the faint squeak of his palms against cold concrete. Most inmates slept until the breakfast bell. Bryant had already finished sit-ups, planks, and 2 sets of pull-ups using the frame of his bunk by the time the lights flickered on. He picked up his white cane, tapped his way down the corridor toward the cafeteria. The smell hit first. Powdered eggs, burnt coffee, and industrial soap. Then the sounds. Metal trays sliding. Plastic forks scraping. Low voices bouncing off the walls. He sat alone, ate slow, didn't talk to anyone. Most people looked at him and saw a blind man trying to survive. What they didn't see was how his head tilted just slightly whenever footsteps approached from behind. How his fingers never stopped moving along the edge of his tray, counting, measuring, mapping distance by sound. 16 years of Special Forces training doesn't just disappear because the lights go out. But that's a detail no one in Cell Block D knew yet. Cell Block D had a system, and the system was Colt Dawson. He had the best bunk, lower, closest to the window. He decided who got phone time and who didn't. He took food off trays, and nobody said a word. If you were new, you either paid respect or you paid in blood. He had 2 guys who did his dirty work. Hank Tillman, big, quiet, built like a refrigerator. And Shane Whitfield, loud, wiry, always laughing at the wrong things. Together, the 3 of them ran the block like their own little kingdom. And the guards? They let it happen. Officer Wade Pemberton worked the day shift. 19 years on the job. He walked past Dawson's shakedowns like they were wallpaper. If an inmate filed a complaint, it went in his pocket. If it went in his pocket, it went in the trash. The deal was simple. Dawson kept the block quiet, Pemberton kept his eyes shut, and Warden Gavin Crawford kept the numbers clean. Fewer incident reports meant better ratings. Better ratings meant more funding. Everyone got what they wanted. Everyone except the inmates getting stomped on. On Bryant's second morning, a tray slid next to his at the breakfast table. A voice, young, nervous. "Mind if I sit?"
Bryant tilted his head. Free country, mostly. The man laughed. His name was Terrence Cole. Terry, 29. In for nonviolent drug possession. He'd been in cell block D for 8 months, which meant he'd learned the rules the hard way. Terry didn't waste time.
Look, I'm just going to tell you straight. Dawson's going to come for you. He always hits the new ones first. And you're... He paused. Bryant finished it for him. Black and blind. I know. Terry went quiet for a second. Then, what'd you do before this? Bryant took a sip of coffee, set it down. I was in the Army. He didn't say anything else. Terry waited. Nothing came.
But Terry noticed something. The way Bryant held his cup. Steady, centered, no wasted movement. The way he turned his head toward the guard's footsteps before Terry even heard them. The way he sat with his back flat against the wall, shoulders square, like he was waiting for something. You move like you know where everything is, Terry said. Bryant took another sip. I do. It started on the 3rd day.
Bryant was sitting in the common room. Evening recreation. The TV was on. Some game show nobody was watching. A few inmates played cards in the corner. Others just sat, staring at nothing.
Bryant had his cane across his lap. He was listening, not to the TV, to the room, mapping the space the way he always did. Footsteps, chair legs scraping, the hum of the overhead vent. Then a new sound. 3 sets of boots, heavy, coming from the left corridor, moving with purpose.
Dawson's voice came first. Well, 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 look who's sitting in my chair.
Bryant didn't move. Didn't see a name on it. A few inmates nearby went quiet. That was the first sign. Dawson walked closer. His boys flanked him, Tillman on the right, Whitfield on the left. He stopped 2 feet from Bryant, close enough for Bryant to smell the coffee on his breath.
You got jokes, huh? Funny, blind man. Dawson leaned down. So tell me, what'd you do to end up here, boy? Steal a car you couldn't even drive? Whitfield laughed, loud, performative. Bryant's jaw tightened, just barely. Aggravated assault. Dawson raised an eyebrow, looked back at his crew. Aggravated assault? You? He let out a slow whistle. What'd you do? Trip somebody with your little stick? More laughter, louder this time. Bryant said nothing. Dawson reached down and grabbed Bryant's tray from the table next to him. Still had half a bread roll and some beans on it. He held it up, tilted it, and let everything slide onto the floor. The tray clanged against concrete. Oops, Dawson said. Guess you didn't see that coming. Bryant sat still, hands on his cane, breathing slow. He stood up, picked up his cane, and walked back to his cell without a word. Dawson watched him go, grinning. That's right. Walk away, dog. At the guard station, Officer Pemberton sat with his feet up. He'd watched the whole thing through the window. He reached for his coffee, took a sip, changed the channel on his radio. That was day 3. Day 5 was worse. Bryant was coming out of the showers, wet hair, white cane tapping along the wall. The corridor was narrow, concrete on both sides, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. He heard them before he felt them. 3 sets of footsteps, moving fast. No talking this time. A hand shoved him hard from behind. Bryant stumbled forward. His cane slipped. His shoulder hit the wall. He caught himself before his face did. Dawson's voice was right in his ear. You know what I love about you, blind boy? You can't even see it coming. Bryant straightened up, turned toward the voice, said nothing. Dawson shoved him again, this time into the opposite wall.
Bryant's elbow cracked against the cinder block. Pain shot up his arm. "Look at him," Dawson said to Tillman and Whitfield. "Nature made this one broken twice. Can't see? Wrong color? It's like God was having a bad day." Whitfield snickered. Tillman cracked his knuckles. Dawson reached into Bryant's pockets, pulled out a small radio, a pack of crackers from commissary, extra socks. "Consider this rent," Dawson said, tossing the radio to Whitfield. "You breathe my air. You pay for it." Bryant didn't swing, didn't grab, didn't raise his voice. But inside his mind, something else was happening. Something Dawson couldn't see. Bryant was cataloging. Dawson's voice, 3 inches above his own ear level, 6'2", maybe 6'3", weight shifts favoring the right leg, about 220. Tillman stood 4 feet to the right, heavy breather, flat feet. Whitfield was behind, 5 feet back, lighter steps, nervous shuffle. 3 targets, 3 positions, mapped. It would take 4 seconds to put all 3 of them on the floor, but he didn't. Because somewhere outside these walls, Colonel Nathan Brooks was working on his appeal. 1 incident report, 1 fight, 1 write-up, and all of that goes away. The appeal dies, the sentence stays, maybe gets longer. Bryant swallowed the rage like broken glass. He picked up his cane, walked to his cell, sat on his bunk, and pressed his palms together until the shaking stopped. That night, Terry came by. "I saw your arm. What happened?" "Nothing."
That ain't nothing, man. Your elbow's swelling up.
Bryant flexed his fingers. Everything still worked. "I've had worse." Terry sat on the edge of the bunk, lowered his voice. "Where? You said army. What kind of army?" Bryant was quiet for a long time. Then, "The kind they don't put on posters." Terry stared at him, didn't push it. The next morning, Terry did something Bryant told him not to do. He wrote a formal complaint. Detailed. Dates. Times. What Dawson said. What Dawson took. He folded it neatly and handed it to Officer Pemberton at the guard station. Pemberton unfolded it, read it slow, folded it back up. "I'll look into it," he said. He put it in his breast pocket. Terry watched him walk to the staff bathroom, heard the toilet flush. That was the complaint. 3 days later, Bryant filed his own. Used the official grievance box, the metal slot bolted to the wall outside the warden's office. He dictated it to Terry, who wrote it out word for word. Clear, specific, professional. It came back 10 days later, stamped in red, unfounded, no corroborating evidence. Bryant held the paper in his hands, ran his fingers over the stamp. He didn't need to see it. Terry read it out loud. That was enough. The system wasn't broken. The system was working exactly how it was designed to work. That same week, Pemberton pulled Dawson aside in the corridor. Casual, like old friends. "Your blind guy's got a little helper now. Cole filed a complaint." Dawson grinned. "The blind cockroach has a seeing eye dog? Cute." Pemberton shrugged. "Just thought you'd want to know." "Appreciate it, officer." Dawson gave a mock salute. "I'll send him a thank you card." Pemberton walked away. Dawson cracked his neck. Terry wasn't just a witness anymore. Now he was a target, too. That night, Bryant sat on his bunk and made a phone call. The prison phone was cold against his ear. He punched the number from memory. 3 rings. Then a voice. Steady. Authoritative. "Brooks?" "Colonel, it's Irwin." A pause. "Talk to me, son." "It's getting complicated in here, sir." "How complicated?" Bryant listened to the corridor. Footsteps passing. A guard's radio crackling. An inmate coughing 2 cells over.
The kind where I have to keep reminding myself I'm not in Kandahar. Silence on the other end. Then Colonel Brooks said something Bryant needed to hear. "Hold the line, soldier. I'm working on it. Don't give them a reason." Bryant hung up, sat in the dark, and held the line. Day 10. Dawson was bored, and when Dawson got bored, somebody bled.
It was evening. Common room. Most of the block was there, some watching TV, some playing dominoes, some just sitting and counting the hours. The air was thick with body heat and the smell of instant noodles from the microwave in the corner. Dawson stood up on a chair, clapped his hands twice. "All right, boys, I got a new game tonight. Everybody listen up." The room went quiet, not because they wanted to listen, because they knew what happened when they didn't. Dawson pointed at Bryant, who was sitting by himself near the back wall. "Bring me the blind one." Tillman walked over, grabbed Bryant by the arm. Bryant pulled back. Tillman squeezed harder and dragged him to the center of the room, pushed him into the open space between the tables. Bryant stood there, cane in hand, 40 sets of eyes on him. Dawson hopped off the chair, circled him, slow. "Here's the game," Dawson announced. "Let's test how good blind boys' senses really are. I heard when you lose your eyes, everything else gets stronger. Let's find out." He shoved Bryant from behind. Bryant stumbled forward, caught himself. Whitfield shoved him from the left. Bryant staggered. Tillman shoved him from the right. Bryant almost fell. They kept going, spinning him, pushing him, like a toy they couldn't break, round and round, each shove harder than the last. Some inmates looked away. One young kid near the TV covered his face with his hands. An older man in the corner gripped the armrest of his chair so hard his knuckles turned white. Nobody stood up. Nobody said a word. Because every single one of them knew, if you step in, you're next. Then Dawson grabbed a cup of water off the table, walked up to Bryant, poured it over his head. Slow. Every last drop. "Let me baptize you," Dawson said. "Welcome to my church, boy." Water dripped down Bryant's face, down his neck, into the collar of his shirt. He stood still. His fists were clenched so tight at his sides that his nails cut into his palms. A thin line of blood ran down his left hand and dripped onto the floor. One drop, then another. Nobody noticed. Except Terry. He saw it from across the room, and he had to look away because his own hands were shaking. At the guard station, Officer Pemberton stood with his arms crossed. He watched for about 30 seconds. Then he turned around and walked to the other end of the block. Didn't look back. Didn't write a single word. Bryant controlled his breathing. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. Combat breathing. The same technique he used when bullets were cracking overhead in Helmand Province. The only thing keeping 16 years of training from ending this in 3 seconds. After they got bored, Dawson waved his hand and Tillman shoved Bryant back toward his cell. Bryant hit the doorframe with his shoulder, caught himself on the wall. Dawson called out behind him, "Same time tomorrow, blind boy. Don't be late." That night, Bryant sat on his bunk. He didn't move for 2 hours. His shirt was still wet. The water smelled like the instant coffee Dawson had been drinking. It soaked through to his skin and stayed there. Cold. Like the humiliation was something you could wear. He pressed his palms flat on the mattress, counted his breaths, and waited for morning. Day 12. 2:14 in the morning. Bryant was asleep. The cell block was dark, just the low hum of the emergency lights and the occasional snore from down the corridor. Then, a sound. Metal rolling on metal, his cell door sliding open. Bryant's eyes didn't work, but his ears did. 3 sets of footsteps, one heavy, one medium, one light. He knew who they were before the first word was spoken. Tillman and Whitfield came in fast. They grabbed his arms and pinned him flat on his bunk, face up, his shoulders pressed into the thin mattress. He could smell cigarette smoke on Tillman's breath, cheap soap on Whitfield. Then Dawson's voice, standing over him, close. "You know what the best part about beating a blind man is?" Bryant didn't answer. Dawson leaned in. "He can't pick you out of a lineup." The first punch hit Bryant in the ribs, left side. Then another, right side. His body jerked, but Tillman and Whitfield held him down. Dawson took his time. Ribs, stomach, ribs again. Methodical. Like he'd done this before. Because he had. Then came the boot. Dawson stomped on Bryant's right hand. The sound was wrong. Knuckle against concrete, with skin and bone in between. Bryant's jaw locked. A low groan escaped through clenched teeth. But he didn't scream. 16 years of training had burned that reflex out of him a long time ago. Dawson wasn't done. He leaned down close. So close, Bryant could feel breath on his face. "You know what you are? You're entertainment. That's all you'll ever be in here. A blind, black punching bag. And the best part?" He patted Bryant's cheek, slow, like petting a dog. "Nobody's coming for you. Nobody cares. Not the guards, not the warden, not God. Nobody." He stomped one more time, right on Bryant's ribs. Bryant's body curled inward, his teeth clenched so hard he tasted blood. "Stay down, boy," Dawson whispered. "This is my house. You're just the dirt under the welcome mat." They left. The cell door rolled shut. The corridor went quiet again. Bryant lay on the cold floor. He didn't know how long, 5 minutes, maybe 10. His ribs burned with every breath. His right hand was swelling. He could feel the heat radiating from it. He flexed his fingers, one by one, slow. It hurt like hell. But nothing was broken. He could still make a fist. Next morning, breakfast. Bryant showed up in the cafeteria wearing a long-sleeved shirt. Sleeves pulled down to cover the bruises on his arms. He ate with his left hand. Didn't say why. Pemberton walked past his table, glanced at him, kept walking. In the daily log that night, Pemberton wrote, "No incidents to report." Terry found Bryant in his cell after lunch, saw the swollen hand, the way Bryant held his ribs when he sat down, the way he flinched when he reached for his water cup. "We gotta do something, man." Bryant shook his head. "There's nothing to do inside the system. The system is Dawson's." "Then we go outside the system." Bryant didn't respond, but he didn't say no. That Saturday, Terry had a family visit. His cousin Darnell came in from Youngstown. They sat across from each other at the plastic table, talked about normal things, Mama's cooking, the Browns losing again, his niece's first birthday. Then Terry slid a folded piece of paper across the table, small, hidden under his palm. Darnell looked at it, looked at Terry. "There's a phone number on that paper," Terry said quietly. "A name. Colonel Nathan Brooks. You call him. You tell him his soldier needs help. F.C.I. Elkton. Cell Block D." tell him it's bad. Darnell put the paper in his pocket without looking at it. How bad? Terry looked him in the eye. Bad enough that a blind man is bleeding every night and nobody's writing it down. Darnell nodded. He didn't ask anything else. The call was made that evening. Day 15. The last day things would ever be the same in Cell Block D. Dawson called it his masterpiece. Common room. Full house. Every inmate in the block either sitting or standing along the walls. Dawson had made sure of it. He wanted an audience. He dragged Bryant to the center of the room, same spot as before, the spot where everyone could see. All right, blind boy, here's how this works. Dawson stood in front of him, arms crossed, voice loud enough for every corner of the room. You get on your knees. You say, "Thank you, sir," and maybe, just maybe, I let you eat dinner tonight. The room was dead silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Bryant stood there, cane at his side, head tilted slightly toward Dawson's voice. Then, quiet and steady. No. The word landed like a grenade. Dawson's smile disappeared. His eyes narrowed. In 5 years of running Cell Block D, nobody had ever said that word to him in front of a crowd. What did you just say? Bryant didn't hesitate. I said no, and I'll say it again so you hear it clearly. No. Dawson's neck went red, his fists clenched. You're done, he said, low, almost a whisper. He pulled back his right arm, loaded everything into one punch, aimed straight at Bryant's jaw, and swung. Yo! Seriously? Imagine you're standing right there, watching a blind man get dragged to the middle of a room every single night. Guards doing nothing, nobody stepping in, and you can't do a damn thing about it. Now tell me, how long could you take that before you snap? Dawson swung a full right hook. 220 pounds of force aimed straight at a blind man's jaw. It never landed. Bryant's left hand came up and caught Dawson's wrist, mid-swing, in the air, like he'd been waiting for it his whole life. Not a block, a trap. The room froze. 40 inmates, not one of them blinked. What happened next took 8 seconds. Bryant redirected Dawson's momentum, used the weight of the punch against him. His right hand hooked behind Dawson's lead ankle and swept it clean off the ground. Dawson went down, face first. His chin hit the concrete. The sound was sharp, like a wet slap on stone. His teeth cracked together. Blood sprayed from his lip. He tried to push himself up, got one hand under his chest. Bryant was already there. He locked Dawson's right arm behind his back. Standing joint lock. Controlled, surgical. The kind of move that looks simple, but takes a decade to master. Dawson screamed. His face pressed into the floor. His arm twisted at an angle that was 1 inch from snapping. Don't move, Bryant said. Quiet, almost gentle. Hank Tillman didn't think. He rushed in from the right, 250 pounds, charging like a freight train. Bryant heard him coming. Every step, the heavy breathing, the flat-footed stride. He released Dawson, sidestepped left, caught Tillman's arm as it swung past, and used the big man's own momentum to drive him headfirst into the wall. 2 moves, less than a second. Tillman slid to the ground like a bag of wet sand. Dazed. Done. Shane Whitfield was standing 6 feet away. His eyes were wide. His hands came up. "I'm out," he said. His voice cracked. "I'm out. I'm done." Bryant didn't touch him. He stood in the center of the room, breathing normal. Not a scratch on him, not a hair out of place. He bent down, picked up his white cane from the floor, straightened his shirt. Then he said one word. "No." 40 inmates stared. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound was Dawson groaning on the floor, holding his twisted arm, blood dripping from his mouth onto cold concrete. 8 seconds. That's all it took. And every person in that room understood the same thing at the exact same moment. They had been watching a wolf dressed as a lamb. Word spread through the facility like fire through dry grass. By lights out, every cell block knew the story. By morning, every inmate at FCI Elkton had heard some version of it. The blind guy dropped Dawson in 8 seconds. Didn't even throw a punch. Just moved. Like water. That ain't boxing. That ain't MMA. That's something else. An older inmate in Block B, a former Marine, 12 years in, got a look at the common room security footage. One of the guards owed him a favor. He watched it twice, then a third time. He sat back in his chair and shook his head. "That's SFQC combatives," he said. "Special Forces qualification course. I've seen it once before, at Bragg. That man is Green Beret." The rumor hit the administrative wing by the next afternoon. Warden Gavin Crawford pulled Bryant Irwin's file for the first time since intake. He opened it at his desk, coffee in hand. 30 seconds later, the coffee was cold and Crawford's face was white. Master Sergeant, 7th Special Forces Group. 16 years active duty. 4 combat deployments. Afghanistan, Iraq, 2 classified. Silver Star recipient, Purple Heart. JSOC, Close Quarters Combat Instructor. Trained hand-to-hand combat for Delta Force operators and SEAL Team 6. Call sign, Phantom. Referenced in internal Special Operations training manuals. Crawford closed the file. Opened it again. Read it one more time to make sure he wasn't imagining things. He wasn't. He picked up the phone and called Pemberton. "Get to my office. Now." Pemberton showed up 10 minutes later. Still had crumbs on his shirt from lunch. Crawford didn't offer him a seat. "Do you have any idea at all, who you've been letting Dawson use as a punching bag for the last 2 weeks?" Pemberton shrugged. "He's just some blind—" "He's a decorated Green Beret." Crawford's voice was shaking. "Special Forces. The kind of soldier who trains the soldiers we already call the best in the world. A Silver Star recipient who lost his eyesight saving 4 men in Afghanistan." Pemberton's face went gray. "And every single thing that happened to him in your block, the beatings, the stomping, the shakedowns, the night you left his cell door unlocked, all of it is about to come out. How do you—" Because Colonel Nathan Brooks, his former commanding officer, just made 3 phone calls. 1 to a military lawyer, 1 to a journalist at the Washington Post, and 1 to a congressman on the Armed Services Committee. Pemberton opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Crawford leaned forward. "So I'm going to ask you one time, and you better think real hard before you answer. What exactly have you been doing on your shift for the last 2 weeks?" Crawford went into full lockdown mode. Not the kind that protects inmates, the kind that protects careers. First call, the Bureau of Prisons Regional Office. "We had a minor altercation in cell block D. Situation is contained. No serious injuries." He kept his voice calm, professional, like he'd rehearsed it in the mirror. Second call, his deputy warden.
I need every incident report from Block D for the last 60 days on my desk by 5 o'clock. And I need them clean.
Clean. That was the word he used. Third move. Dawson. Transferred to solitary confinement within the hour. Not as punishment. Crawford made sure the paperwork said administrative separation for the safety of all parties. No admission of fault. No mention of the beatings. Just bureaucratic language designed to say nothing while covering everything. Dawson sat in solitary and stared at the wall. His right arm was in a sling. His lip was stitched. And for the first time in 5 years, the king of Cell Block D had nothing to say. Because it was finally hitting him. The blind man he stomped on for fun. The man he poured water on. The man he pinned to the floor at 2 a.m. and kicked in the ribs while his boys held him down. That man could have killed him at any point, any day, any second, and chose not to. That thought was worse than the arm. Crawford's next problem was Pemberton. He suspended him that afternoon, pending internal review. Pemberton took it quietly. Too quietly. Because Pemberton had his own mess to clean up. That night, Pemberton drove back to the facility after hours, badged in through the staff entrance, went straight to the security office. He needed the footage from day 12, the night attack. If that video got out, it wouldn't just end his career. It would end his freedom. He sat down at the terminal, pulled up the file, hit delete. A pop-up appeared on screen. File backed up to Federal Bureau of Prisons Central Server. Local deletion does not affect archived copies. Pemberton stared at the screen for a long time. Then he put his head in his hands. The footage was already gone. Copied to a server he couldn't touch, in a building he'd never see the inside of. Every second of that night, him unlocking the cell door, walking away, Dawson and his boys going in, the sounds, the shadows, everything, backed up and time-stamped. There was no erasing this. The next morning, Pemberton tried one more thing. He found Bryant in the corridor outside the cafeteria, walked up to him, kept his voice low. "Look, Irwin, this whole thing got out of hand. I think we both know that." He paused, tried to sound reasonable. "If you just say it was mutual, that both sides had a part in it, we can all move on. Nobody else needs to get involved." Bryant stopped walking, turned his head toward Pemberton's voice. "You left my cell door unlocked," Bryant said, "at 2 a.m, so 3 men could come in and beat me in the dark." Pemberton opened his mouth. "We're done talking," Bryant said. He tapped his cane twice on the floor and walked away. Pemberton stood in the corridor alone. The fluorescent lights buzzed above him like flies over something dead. 2 days later, a black SUV pulled into the visitor parking lot at FCI Elkton. The man who stepped out was 61 years old, silver hair, straight back. He wore civilian clothes, a navy blazer over a pressed shirt. But everything about the way he moved said military. The way he walked, the way he held his shoulders, the way every guard in the lobby straightened up without knowing why. Colonel Nathan Brooks, retired, 28 years in Special Forces, now a civilian consultant for the Department of Defense, and the man who had spent the last 14 months trying to get his best soldier out of a prison he never should have been in. He asked for a meeting with the warden. He got one in under 10 minutes. Crawford sat behind his desk. Brooks sat across from him. No handshake, no small talk. "I'm going to give you one chance," Brooks said. "One. Explain to me how a Silver Star recipient, a man who bled for this country and lost his eyesight doing it, was used as a punching bag in your facility while your officer held the door open. Crawford stared at his desk.
I didn't think so, Brooks said. So let me tell you what's already in motion. The Washington Post is running this story Friday morning. Congressman Holloway's office is requesting your complete incident logs by end of business tomorrow. And a military JAG attorney is filing an emergency appeal on Sergeant Irwin's conviction by the end of this week. Brooks stood up. You had 2 weeks to protect that man. You didn't. Now other people will. He walked out. Didn't look back.
Crawford sat alone in his office. The clock on the wall ticked. His coffee sat untouched. And for the first time in 8 years as warden, Gavin Crawford understood what it felt like to be the one who couldn't do a damn thing about what was coming. The Washington Post published the story on a Friday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern. The headline read, "Blind Green Beret Hero Beaten Repeatedly in Federal Prison While Guards Watched." By 7, it had 10,000 shares. By noon, it was the most read article on the website. By evening, every major cable network in the country was running it. The details hit like a freight train. Bryant Irwin, Master Sergeant, 7th Special Forces Group, 16 years of service, 4 combat deployments, Silver Star, Purple Heart, blinded by an IED in Helmand Province while pulling 4 teammates out of a burning vehicle, convicted of aggravated assault for defending a homeless veteran, sentenced to 14 months in a federal facility where he was systematically beaten, humiliated, and stomped on by a white supremacist inmate, while a corrections officer unlocked his cell door to let it happen. The article named names: Colt Dawson, Officer Wade Pemberton, Warden Gavin Crawford, FCI Elkton. It published everything. Veterans organizations were the first to respond. The American Legion released a statement within hours, then the VFW, then the Special Forces Association. All of them said the same thing in different words. This was a disgrace.
Then the Pentagon weighed in. A formal statement from the Department of Defense press office. Master Sergeant Bryant Irwin served with extraordinary distinction in the most demanding assignments our military has to offer. His sacrifice and service deserve better than what he received. Social media did what social media does. The hashtag went up before lunch. Hashtag Justice for Bryant. It trended nationally by 3 in the afternoon. By midnight, it was the #1 trending topic in the United States. Footage leaked, shot on contraband phones by inmates who had watched it all happen. Grainy, shaky, but clear enough. Dawson pouring water on Bryant's head. The shoving circle in the common room. Bryant standing still while 3 men pushed him around like a rag doll. Millions of people watched a blind war hero get humiliated for sport. And millions of people got angry. The Department of Justice moved fast. The Office of Inspector General opened a formal investigation into FCI Elkton the following Monday. Special Agent Diana Ellis led the team. She arrived with 4 investigators, 2 forensic accountants, and a federal subpoena for every document, recording, and communication in the facility's system. Ellis was 44. 14 years with the OIG. She had investigated corrections officers before. She had investigated wardens before. But she told her team on the drive up that this one was different. "This isn't one bad guard," she said. "This is a facility that was designed to make people disappear." She was right. The investigation took 3 weeks. What it uncovered was worse than the article described. 23 unreported assault incidents in Cell Block D over the past 2 years. 19 of them involved Black or Latino inmates. All 19 were perpetrated
by Dawson or his crew. Not a single one appeared in the facility's official records. Pemberton had received over $12,000 in contraband kickbacks from Dawson's operation. Stolen commissary goods, smuggled cell phones, tobacco, all flowing through Pemberton's shift, all invisible on paper. Warden Crawford had personally signed off on suppressing 14 formal grievances, including Bryant's. His signature was on every single rejection. The stamp that said unfounded wasn't a clerical error. It was a policy. Medical records told their own story. Bryant's injuries from the night attack, bruised ribs, hand contusion, facial swelling, had been logged by the facility nurse as recreational injury, basketball. Bryant Irwin, a blind man, injured playing basketball. That's what the record said. Ellis pulled Terry Cole in for an interview. He brought his log, 31 handwritten pages. Every incident, every date, every time, every name. Who did what? Who watched? Who walked away? Ellis read it cover to cover. Then she read it again. "How long did it take you to write all this?" she asked. "Every night," Terry said, "after lights out. Under my blanket with a pen I hid in my mattress." Ellis nodded. "You understand this changes your situation too. This is federal witness testimony." Terry didn't blink. "I know." The last piece was the footage. Not the contraband phone videos. The official security camera recording from the night of day 12. The one Pemberton tried to delete. Ellis's team recovered it from the federal backup server. Full resolution, time-stamped. It showed everything. Pemberton walking to Bryant's cell at 2:11 a.m., swiping his keycard. The door rolling open. Pemberton walking away. 3 figures entering. The attack. The door closing. Pemberton returning 20 minutes later to lock it again. Clear as daylight. Undeniable. The charges came down like dominoes. Colt Dawson. 3 counts of assault. Federal hate crime enhancement under the Matthew Shepard Act. Conspiracy. His existing 6-year sentence was now the least of his problems. The new charges carried up to 15 additional years. During his hearing, the judge read Bryant's military record aloud. Every deployment, every commendation, every mission. Dawson sat in his orange jumpsuit and stared at the floor. He didn't say a word. Hank Tillman and Shane Whitfield, charged as co-conspirators in the assaults. Additional time added to both sentences. Whitfield cooperated with investigators. Tillman didn't. It wouldn't matter. The footage spoke for itself. Officer Wade Pemberton, terminated. Arrested the same day. Charged with deprivation of rights under color of law. 18 U.S.C. Section 242. Conspiracy. Falsifying federal records. Accepting bribes. He faced up to 10 years. His union didn't fight for him. His lawyer advised a plea deal. Pemberton took it. Warden Gavin Crawford. Removed from his position, effective immediately. Placed under investigation for systemic negligence and obstruction. The Bureau of Prisons launched a facility-wide audit of FCI Elkton, the first in its history. Crawford's 20-year career in corrections ended in a single press release. No quotes, no statement. Just a name and the word removed. And then there was Bryant. Colonel Brooks's military JAG attorney filed an emergency appeal the same week the Post article ran. The argument was simple and devastating. The original prosecutor had used Bryant's military training as an aggravating factor. He'd told the jury that Bryant's hands were lethal weapons and that his intervention to protect a homeless veteran was disproportionate force by a trained killer. The appeals judge reviewed the case, reviewed the trial transcript, reviewed Bryant's service record, and wrote an opinion that would be quoted in law schools for years. The defendant's use of force was consistent with reasonable intervention. The prosecution's decision to weaponize the defendant's military service, service that included losing his eyesight in defense of this nation, represents a fundamental misapplication of justice. Conviction overturned. Sentence vacated. Bryant Irwin was ordered released. The day he walked out of FCI Elkton, the sky was gray, light rain. He could feel it on his face. His white cane tapped the wet pavement as he stepped through the front gate. Colonel Brooks was standing in the parking lot, hands in his pockets. He'd driven 4 hours from D.C. that morning. Bryant stopped, tilted his head. "Colonel." "Sergeant." They didn't salute. They embraced. 2 soldiers. 1 long war.
Brooks pulled back, looked at him. "Welcome home, son." Bryant smiled, the first real smile in 14 months. "Took a little longer than expected, sir." Brooks put a hand on his shoulder. "The best ones always do." 6 months later, Columbus, Ohio, a community center 3 blocks from the VA hospital. The paint on the outside was peeling. The parking lot had more cracks than concrete. But every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 in the morning, the gym inside was full.
Bryant Irwin stood in the center of the mat, white cane leaning against the wall behind him, sleeves rolled up, scars visible on both forearms. Around him, 14 veterans. A man in a wheelchair with no legs below the knee. A woman with a prosthetic arm. 2 guys with PTSD so bad their hands shook when they made fists. And 3 men wearing dark glasses just like Bryant's. He called the class Ground Up. Self-defense for disabled veterans. No belts, no ranks, no uniforms, just bodies learning how to protect themselves using whatever they had left. "Forget what you can't do," Bryant told them on the first day. "We're here to find out what you still can." The class was free. Bryant wouldn't take $1 for it. The VA offered to fund it. He said no. A private veterans foundation covered the gym rental. That was enough. Every session started the same way. Bryant stood in the middle. Someone came at him. And every single time, no matter the angle, no matter the speed, he redirected them to the floor without throwing a single punch. Then he'd help them up, show them how he did it, break it down piece by piece. Patient, calm, the same steady voice that had said no to Colt Dawson in front of 40 men. One Tuesday morning, a young veteran named Deshaun, 23, lost his sight to a mortar round in Syria 6 months prior, stood on the mat and didn't move. His hands were shaking. "I can't do this," he said. "I can't see where anything is." Bryant walked over, put a hand on his shoulder. "Neither can I. That's not the point. The point is you're still standing. Now let me show you what to do with that." By the end of the hour, Deshaun had completed his first redirection throw. He stood there on the mat, breathing hard, hands still trembling, and smiled for the first time since he'd come home. Terry Cole got out on parole 3 months after Bryant. First thing he did was drive to Columbus. They sat across from each other at a diner booth, coffee and eggs, just like the cafeteria at Elkton. Except this time, nobody was watching, and nobody was afraid. Terry stirred his coffee, looked at Bryant. "Can I ask you something I never asked?" "Go ahead." "That last day, when Dawson swung at you, Were you scared? Bryant picked up his cup, took a slow sip, set it down. No. A small smile crossed his face. I was relieved. I'd spent 2 weeks pretending I couldn't do what I was born to do. When he swung, I didn't have to pretend anymore. Terry shook his head. 2 weeks? I would have lasted 2 minutes.
No, you wouldn't have. You lasted the whole time with me. You wrote 31 pages in the dark. That's not 2 minutes. That's something else entirely. Terry didn't have a response for that. He just nodded and drank his coffee. Back in Washington, the ripple effects were still spreading. FCI Elkton underwent a top-to-bottom overhaul. New oversight protocols, body cameras mandatory for all corrections officers, an independent grievance review board with civilian members, the first in the federal prison system. Pemberton's case became a Bureau of Prisons training module, how institutional corruption enables inmate abuse. Every new corrections officer in the country would study what happened in Cell Block D. Congress held a hearing on the treatment of disabled inmates in federal custody. Bryant didn't testify in person. He sent a written statement. 3 pages. No anger, no bitterness, just facts, and 1 sentence at the end. A uniform should protect everyone who wears it, and everyone it's supposed to serve. A new federal policy was introduced requiring enhanced protections for inmates with disabilities, mandatory check-ins, separate grievance channels, independent medical documentation. They called it the Irwin Standard. Bryant never gave a single interview. No TV appearances, no book deals, no speaking tours. One morning, in his apartment in Columbus, he made his bed. Hospital corners, same as prison, same as the army. Counted 7 steps to the sink, brushed his teeth, folded his towel into thirds. He stepped outside. The sun hit his face. Warm. He couldn't see it, but he could feel it. His white cane tapped the sidewalk. Left, right, left, forward. The world didn't see a blind man anymore. It saw a man who saw more than most people ever would. Man, this story's fiction. But imagine you're the one lying on that floor. Blind, can't fight back. Guards doing nothing. How long could you take it? Drop that in the comments. Like this, share it, subscribe. Next one's even crazier.